DBJ here, and I had to move. This one is about don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to adjudicate. It's especially for you new GMs, DMs, players out there. I think one of the hardest things to describe in role-playing is the idea that as the game master, how do you game master? And one of the rules in game mastering is adjudication, deciding how something works in the game when you have no clear rule, written or otherwise, in a particular situation, and how do you handle that? I am going to give a plug here for Within the Ring of Fire, and the reason why I'm giving a plug on this is because the first chapter of the book is nothing but how to role play both as a flame tender and as a star of the game, a catalyst in the game. And many games, including Dungeons and Dragons, are woefully lacking in how do you do that. So let me be specific. What do I mean by adjudication? Adjudication means something happens in the game. The players have a great idea, very creative. It may move the story forward, but there's no rule on how to do it. You look in the book, there's no rule on it. I'll bring up an example that I posted in a comment. I had an idea of attacking a party with harpies. Female-headed birds, pretty nasty, claws on their feet, that kind of stuff. Players were at an abandoned castle, keep. Most of the bodies in there were dead and eaten off of by carrion birds, and they were attacked by these harpies who lived in one of the towers. Well, the players decided that none of them could fly. Okay, the harpies had them at an advantage because they could stay far away if they wanted to. So they said, well, does this keep have a place where they can pour burning oil or like hot tar onto enemies as they come into the castle? So the first question, when the players said this, like, is there something there? And when I created the game, I hadn't decided what was there. So instantly I have to think now, it's an abandoned keep. The people here were killed. What kind of supplies existed? Well, I erred in favor of saying, because I had no idea initially I had no idea what they were going to do. But I had to decide, they wanted to know if something existed. Was it there? And I had no reason to say no. And here's the two reasons why I said yes. There was some old pitch and big giant barrels of oil. There would be no reason why it wouldn't be there. The people in the keep were killed. A lot of them ran. They were not attacked by an army for them to have used it yet. So yes, it was still sitting there above the giant portcullis so they could pour it down onto the enemies that would be attacking. The oil was there. The pitch that you could light on fire, sticky stuff, yes, it was still there. Second reason why I said that when the players asked, was it there? Here's the second reason why I said it. Apparently they were coming up with an idea. And although as a game master, I didn't know where this idea was going, because they were asking for something, I wanted to see it through. So instead of killing the possible creative spark, I wanted to see where this element in the story was heading. And by shortcutting that, by saying, well, no, as a game master, I think this scene should go one particular direction, and killing it, players learn from that. Players learn that when they create an idea, there's no reason to be creative if my ideas get shut down. Ergo, I'm just going to use the rules because the game master is going to use the rules. And in my experience, no matter how thick a rule book, it will never, ever, ever encompass all rules and all situations that ever happen in any game, period. That's why many of these games have rules about using D&D 5th edition. They have saving throws. They have attribute rolls. They have skill checks. And above all, there is Game Master adjudication. So, characters come up with an idea. Hey, is there oil? Is there flaming pitch? We can use this. I said, okay. The next step, they said, well, being out in a courtyard being attacked by flying creatures isn't smart. We're going to run to the narrower halls, the inner portions of the keep where these flying creatures can't get to us easily. Well, are there rules for that? Not especially. So they decided they wanted to run underneath the entryway to the castle, the portcullis, where farmers and travelers and the army walk in and out of the castle, and essentially lead the harpies to fly underneath the portcullis and to attack them there, so that their wings would not have the ability to give them the maneuverability that they have, because they would be in a tighter spot. Well, again, adjudication. This is long before 5th edition. We were playing AD&D, between AD&D and 2nd edition, I believe. That's how long ago it was, as far as editions go. And I had to make a decision. I don't even remember what the penalty was. I believe it was like a -2 or a -4 or something to their attacks and defenses or something like that. And I had to adjudicate that situation. Okay, here's a flying creature. There's no rules on how that flying creature should act. I got to come up with some kind of penalty to give to them. I didn't have to. I am the game master. There's no rule saying that a flying creature would be that much easier to hit in a smaller area, but it makes sense. Also, the players were coming up with a great idea, and as the game master, I'm picturing this and going, you know what, this scene sounds awesome. And by not allowing the scene to play out and to reward player choices, I would have killed it. So I allowed them to do it. So the last part of this was they wanted to create some timing, and their idea was to run under the entryway, have one portcullis fall down, have the players jump out on the other side, basically trapping the harpies inside and pouring oil pouring oil and pitch on them and then lighting them on fire, essentially trapping them between two iron gates and setting them on fire. And as complicated as that sounds, for me, just being a visual and visceral person, it just sounded like an awesome idea. Now, initially, when I created the idea, what I wanted, how I pictured it going is the players would be attacked in the courtyard by the harpies. Maybe they'd get hurt. They'd realize they don't have very many ranged weapons, things of that nature, and it was going to force them further into the castle, possibly even going up into the tower or going into the basement of the castle and finding something where the harpies were in the tower. So they were going to find something that would help them get these harpies out of the tower and find some evidence at the top of the tower. But they weren't ready to fight them, so I wanted them to go deeper into the castle first, knowing they would have to deal with the harpies at some point on exiting the castle. Didn't work out exactly that way. They got rid of the harpies first thing out. And so again, as a game master, I had to adjudicate, okay, well, will their timing be perfect? Maybe, maybe not. And my thing is, the scene and the idea they created was so good, it would be evil not to let something like that happen. It was just a great, I could just picture the music and the idea of these harpies just screaming in pain. So did they do it? Yes, I let them do it. And it was, I think I gave them a whole bunch of dice to roll for damage because of the oil burning, and it was like, well, instead of just a flask, it's a whole barrel, so I'm going to let you roll like 10 times as much damage or something, which at this point I didn't even care. It was such a great idea. I think the harpies just needed to die, so I just overloaded them with a whole bunch of dice and let them roll it and stuff, because people like rolling dice. And just let them, sit there and burn to death and stuff, and let them go on into the castle, in which case the first thing they did is want to go up into the tower where the harpies had their nest and stuff. And it was like allowing that creative spark to come, knowing that I didn't create it. It was the players that created it. Is something that as a game master, you have to learn to release control of your creative idea and allow it to grow on its own. And your players will come up with some awesome ideas. Some of them will try to break your game. They will. They'll try to break it. But don't be afraid. Bringing this all the way back in. Don't be afraid to release the slack on the rope. To walk around that corner because you don't know what's there. As a game master, it's very scary because you don't want to make the wrong decision. But just don't be afraid to adjudicate. You can always rein it back in. Guys, I see where you're going with this. But you know your character. You can always say, hey, I know where you're going with this, but your character is very brilliant. You've got an 18 intelligence wizard. And although this idea is great, there's a very slim chance you'll be able to get this done in enough time because this creature's rampaging. If you had more time, you could construct a cage to hold the owlbear in it. There's not enough time to do this. The owlbear is banging down at the door. Maybe you can come up with something else. Sometimes you may have to, as a game master, push them in a different direction. So instead of the players going, well, I have a craft skill. Can I build a cage to put the owlbear in? You're going, well, mentally you're going, it's probably going to take a couple of hours to build something like that. Well, hey, the druid in your party can use a spell to shape plants. How about you make a cage out of plants working with the wizard? And you can even help spawn it. Hey, wizard, you have a mage armor spell. Why don't I will allow you to modify your mage armor spell to put armor around this tree that the druid wants to use as a cage. You're going, that's really breaking the rules. But then as a game master, you're going, man, they're really coming up with a great idea because they know that the owlbear is actually transformed from someone in the town. They don't want to kill him, and they're really trying to go out of their way. So, yeah, I'll give that to them. And you just do it. Adjudication. Sometimes it's a scary thing. Very hard to tell you what situations you will have to adjudicate as a new game master. But I would say just don't be afraid. If you allow players to be creative, they will reward you with great time, some enjoyment. They will want to come back and they will love your story. And you will realize how creative it is, how much of a creative spark your own players can give you. And it's strange, but sometimes even they can lead you into a greater place in your mind. So, as always, guys, just be creative. Don't destroy that spark.